quite a different company to what we've just heard from. We're in the technology business. We specifically manufacture a product that is designed to detect items hidden in clothing, as you can see from the picture on the front slide. And I'm going to be introducing the company and talking a little bit about trading performance in the first half of the year. How do I move the slide forward? So as you can see on the screen, we are quite different to similar technologies you'll be familiar with, which is the airport body scanner and the metal detector, both of which do what we do, which is to detect items hidden in clothing. But we use what is in effect a body heat camera. So you can see on the right-hand side the video picture, and on the left-hand side you see what we call our green ghost. So this is what your body heat signature looks like to our camera. And we can see your body heat in green, and anything hidden in your clothing stops that heat reaching the camera, meaning we can see it. We don't know what it is, but we can see its size, shape and location. And in this particular instance, it's quite an easy shape to recognize. That's a gun. So that's broadly what we do. Crucially, unlike metal detectors, we detect non-metallic as well as metallic items. And unlike airport body scanners, we operate at some distance from the person, and we basically show the operator what we can see. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a minute. We're also taking advantage of the very latest in AI and machine learning. So one of the things we've introduced since I last briefed this audience is our new dynamic detection AI algorithm, which we sell as a separate software license, which helps our business model moving forward. But we're starting to see good traction for that, and clearly it helps operators use our equipment more effectively. A quick bit of science. So over on the right, this is the electromagnetic spectrum. So on the right, sort of X-ray and ultraviolet, very short wavelength energy. Over on the left is the airport body scanner. Confusingly, it's in the microwave band, but I'm pleased to say they don't actually microwave you in the airport, even though it's not a great experience most of the time. They effectively radar your body and produce a three-dimensional snapshot. And to work out what's hidden in your clothing, they need to know what the natural lumps and bumps are and where they should or shouldn't be. And then they basically hide all of that information for privacy reasons and put a big red box on the bit of the body the machine thinks there's an item. And then you get somebody basically physically search you to check there's nothing there. Very slow, generally unpleasant. None of us like going through airport security. We're sat in this interesting little bit of spectrum, longer wavelength than traditional infrared. Technically, we're a passive terahertz interferometer, but we see through your clothing, and we do that because we're imaging at around 1.2 millimeters wavelength, and at that wavelength, your clothing is transparent, so we can see your body heat through your clothing, but solid objects clearly are solid, so that's how we perform our detection. But we're intrinsically safe, so we're passive, i.e. we receive your energy only. We're not like an airport body scanner, which is active, which basically bounces radio waves off you. So intrinsically safe, intrinsically respectful, in that you can't see any anatomical detail in our imagery. And when you take that into the real world, what effectively it means is we operate at this safe distance, 3 to 4 meters. A security guard can see what you've got hidden in your clothing. Now, it might be something benign like a wallet or a phone. Equally, it might be something you're trying to steal or smuggle. But because the security guard can see it, they can ask you to remove it from your pocket and show it to them, which we call a kind of a pick and pull. And obviously, if it's your wallet and you pulled it out of your pocket, then the security guard can see it was a wallet. He or she can see there's nothing left in your pocket. You've cleared the alarm, you're cleared to go. All of that is done safely, respectfully, no patting down. Quite a difference to the airport body scanner or the metal detector experience we're all used to. So how do we apply this new technology? Where's our market? Where do we make our money? Well, we started out life in the UK government's Rutherford Appleton Labs in Harwell, Oxfordshire, where the technology originally was designed to go on satellites to look for holes in the ozone layer. Thruvision was spun out in the mid-2000s and invested in principally to look for suicide bomb vests. Clearly, if you see one of those, you want to be as far away as possible when you see it. So this whole idea of standoff detection was the driver to take this nascent capability and turn it into a product. Here we are a number of years later, and thank goodness suicide bomb detection isn't a big market. So we've been spending the last 3 or 4 years having had fair amounts of further investment from both the British government and more recently the US government to get the technology up to a saleable, manufacturable, kind of commercially viable state. And we've really found the two green markets, i.e. invest strongly for growth markets, are the international customs agency market and the retail profit protection market. The latter's a bit jargony. What that actually means is basically stopping staff stealing things out of retail warehouses. It's not members of the public stealing out of shops, it's staff from warehouses. But those are our two kind of markets where we make our money today. What they have in common is the things that are being smuggled or stolen tend to be non-metallic. So metal detectors don't work at all. And airport body scanners are simply too large, slow, cumbersome, unpleasant, expensive to have ever gained any traction. So we really have very little competition in those two market segments. And we're starting to see great traction with some flagship customers that you'll recognise. In particular, in US Customs, the big news in the last 6 months is breakthrough orders with US Customs, CBP, which stands for US Customs and Border Protection. And I'll talk a bit more about that now. So a little bit of the background to this particular story. So started selling to CBP for pilot program work almost 3 years ago now. They started out buying our 8-channel camera. So that every channel we put into a camera gives you extra performance, but it comes at a greater price. So an 8-channel camera is our kind of our mainstay product. Over 2 years, we sold CBP 60 8-channel cameras. COVID got in the way. We finally got into the fields on the Mexican border last summer, got those cameras operationally working, trained several hundred CBP officers, started making captures on the border. And since then we've been working on two deals, both of which closed in September just gone. So the first was to upgrade those initial 60 8-channel cameras to our latest and greatest 16-channel model, much higher performance, greater sensor detection, range, more expensive, and adding to that upgraded hardware, our AI algorithm, as I've shown you, and what we call our tactical deployment system, which is a ruggedized wheeled system that allows our technology to be safely and reliably moved around these very busy ports of entry, as they're called, on the border, with hundreds of thousands of legal Mexican immigrants coming to work or going to school in the US every day and heading home in the evening. So that was significant revenue that we started booking in last financial year and have booked more this year, and we'll book a little the final bits in this half. Today or tomorrow is an important day in that we contractually start delivering to CBP operationally. So we'll be operationally deploying the new upgraded unit, or the first of the upgraded units, into JFK in New York tomorrow, and then rolling out along the southern border before Christmas. So that's great. More importantly, though, is what happens moving forwards, and here we've been working on putting in place what's called a framework purchasing agreement, which allows, with pre-agreed pricing, price indexation, support, all of those things for this year plus 4 further option years. So all the hard procurement work is now done. And coming with that, this year was a further $7 million order for further 16 channel cameras. So very significant uplift to our order book in September. Most, if not all, we expect to deliver by the end of March, which is the end of our financial year for FY23. By way of expectations for the future, CBP in publicly published procurement documentation has made clear an intention to buy around 100 cameras per year for the next 4 years. So with the 60 upgrades and the $7 million purchase, that will get them up to around 120 cameras. So we can't commit to this, they're not committing to this, but we have an expectation that they'll be adding 100 cameras a year next year and for 3 subsequent years. In round figures, 100 cameras is around $15 million worth of revenue to us. So it's not guaranteed, but we've obviously got good indications that that's entirely plausible way forward for us, and would get us out at scale across the southern border, northern border, various airports, seaports, cruise liner terminals, etc. with CBP. So a very busy but hopefully slightly colourful slide for a dark November evening. So this is profit protection. I think with customers like those you can see using us every day to screen employees, we can claim to be an industry-leading solution now. This area has been growing nicely last year. We are seeing a bit of a slowdown this year for obvious reasons, but I think that the point of the slide is twofold. First of which, if you look to the box in the bottom left, by our reckoning, it's quite difficult to get definitive numbers, but by our reckoning, there are going to be somewhere in the region of 20,000. They're called distribution centres. They're retail warehouses to most of us, but somewhere in the region of 20,000 distribution centres across UK, Europe, and the US, by 2025. So that's broadly our addressable market for this offering. And with names like Tesco's and Next as very clear FTSE 100 or FTSE 20s, whatever they are in the UK. Some very large international third-party logistics providers like FedEx and CEVA. Some well-known fashion brands, ASOS, Boohoo. Electronics firms like Samsung, sportswear, JD Sports, other retailers, Fraser Group, Saks Fifth Avenue. We really are across quite a different set of retail sectors and their third-party home delivery partners. We really are starting to get depth of market penetration here. I think a feature of the current market, clearly times are challenging, particularly in UK and Europe. US slightly less badly affected. Certainly in UK, we are seeing long-standing customers like Next, with whom we've been working for 5 years now, starting to upgrade and invest more in Thruvision because they see employee theft climbing very quickly. Clearly, cost of living crisis, etc., is driving crime rates up. But because they've been using Thruvision for so long, they absolutely understand the return on investment. And people like Next and Tesco's, who've been using us for a while now, absolutely will tell other retailers that an investment in Thruvision pays back in around 6 months. It's quite difficult to get a new customer prospect to believe you. It sounds too good to be true, but generally speaking, a Next, for example, is very happy to take potential prospects up to their site, Next Directory site in Pontefract in East Yorkshire, show them how the equipment works, explain how they get value from it, So we get great referenceability from some of our long-standing customers, and as of today, we've been Saks Fifth Avenue is our latest US customer. We've just been rolling out a solution with them today, so we're starting to build some nice referenceable customers in the US as well, which we think gives us a great foothold in that particular market to continue growing. And aiding that growth is this new Thruvision WalkTHRU lane that we've developed in partnership with Next. So traditionally, a profit protection retailer would use a single camera and then randomly pick generally one in every 5 of their employees at the end of a shift and screen them. And that was good at detecting and deterring theft. In the current market, with theft levels rising and it being harder and harder to keep hold of some of these staff who'll move down the road to another employer for £2.50 more an hour, there's this balance to be struck between keeping theft down and retaining employees. So Next has been really grappling with that particular problem and has worked out that if you use 2 cameras in a walk-through lane, you can screen everybody coming off a shift in around 15 minutes because the throughput rate is much higher. But by screening everybody, you get much higher levels of deterrence. So even though this solution, the 2-camera solution with some of the gantry structure you can see in the picture, that's in round figures a £200,000 solution, whereas a single camera solution is nearer £60,000. Even though it's much more expensive, the payback's quicker because you get that extra level of deterrence, and there are softer staff benefits in terms of treating employees more respectfully and getting them home quicker at the end of a shift. So this has been a big, a big new thing for us. We've sold this to Saks and Fraser Group in the last month. The picture you're looking at is with DHL, who are also a new customer where we've got a global agreement recently signed. So we are, notwithstanding that most of our revenue this year is coming from existing customers buying more from us or upgrading what they have, we are still signing some big new customers, which we think absolutely sustains our ability to grow, hopefully as economic times ease off a little bit. So final slide. For those who are not familiar with the business, we've been relatively small for a while now. Last year we were 8.4 million turnover. This year we're expecting to be, a big jump up in revenue. We are covered by an analyst company called Progressive. I'll give you the details for them in a minute if you want to read their analyst note. It's on our website. But the other kind of key statistics around the business are we're just shy of 50% gross margin on our sales. Overheads last year, 5.6 million. They'll be a little above 6 million this year, but we don't see we need to grow our overheads much now. So this year should be our first break-even year on the back of strong US customs ordering and looking forward with US customs helping underpin revenue performance of the business and us not having to scale our overheads particularly, and with some recovery in profit protection sales, then we think we're now we've kind of gone through that all important inflection point in the growth of a company like ours, and we're really quite optimistic about our prospects. And then just so people know who Progressive are, that's the kind of the notes that was put out about a month ago, which will give you a little bit more kind of forecast information that I'm not particularly allowed to give you. So with that, I will hand back.
When you say the approximate cost of your products varies depending on obviously who's buying and where it fits in the particular sector, are you aiming to develop more partnerships like you have with Next?
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly in the profit protection world, we unashamedly try to work with what we would call flagship customers. So the kind of the leading lights in any particular market sector, who, when other customers know that Next have been using us for 5 years and have great success, then that counts for something. And if we can find customers like Next who will buy from us but help us develop the capability, then that's obviously a really helpful thing for a pretty innovative company like Thruvision.
So how does that work in terms of the partnership? Do they help with the cost of the product at all, or is it more than that?
They buy products at pretty close to market rate. We give them a little bit of a discount for helping us and marketing rights and support with the marketing, but it's a standard commercial arrangement, albeit they help us a little bit and we help them a little bit in return.
Okay. So the different aspects that you showed us, the product, profit protection, and the aviation and everything else, what is the biggest revenue generator for you? Oh, it's there, isn't it?
Today it's customs, and we expect it to be customs next year and probably the year after. We're very conscious that's a single customer, albeit a very big customer. So in kind of MBA 101 style, that's the cash cow. The star performer with the very, very big market potential is profit protection. And whilst that's a growing proportion of revenue, it's not the biggest segment right now, but we think over the next 2, 3, 4 years, with the kind of the rate of customer acquisition that we're getting and the fact that people like Next will upgrade their hardware and add software add-ons as they go, we think profit protection should be our biggest market in due course. I didn't really touch too much on aviation given time, but we are in US government aviation accreditation. So that's a long drawn out bureaucratic process. We're in testing again. Don't know when that's going to conclude, but if that does conclude successfully for us, then that will open up the aviation segment too. 3 years ago, maybe we thought that was the prize, but now profit protection and customs are the cake, and aviation is the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Leading on from that, the question I've got come through, just the fact we've got plenty of airports in the UK, Manchester, Edinburgh, do you supply them currently, or are you going to supply them?
We can't supply them until we have basically TSA is the American Transportation Security Administration. So as and when we get TSA accreditation, we will be able to supply them. Relatively speaking, UK aviation market isn't that big. US aviation market's 10 times bigger. But even US aviation market's probably only at best it's a 10th of the size of profit protection. So profit protection is probably an order of magnitude bigger than any of the other markets we've talked about.
Okay. So are you looking, obviously not at the moment, but is there a time when you think you'll be able to pay a dividend? Because you recently issued an RNS showing share options are recently awarded to directors, including yourself.
Yeah, we are. If this year is the year we get to break even, and next year we can get to some level of profitability, then, as previous presenters have also stated, we've got to decide, how much of that we give back to long-standing investors, how much we want to invest for further growth. So that's probably a topic we will be talking more about as a board next year. This year, last 2 years, it's been surviving COVID and building a foundation for the growth we're enjoying this year.
Okay. All your products are manufactured in the UK?
Yes, we basically have very tight supply chain for the very specialist components, which we give us our secret source capability, our patented sensor technology. That's all manufactured in the UK. We contract assemble in Florida to meet Made in America requirements for the US government. The only stuff we get from Asia will be commercial electronics like laptops and power supplies, which right now is not as straightforward as it used to be, but we're pretty good at supply chain management, and therefore intellectual property theft, supply chain management and manufacturing capacity are not things that I have to overly worry about.
Okay, so yeah, the next question was, have you got a problem with parts delivery from overseas?
On any given day of any given week, a wheel has fallen off somewhere, but generally speaking, it's stuff we can. It's not the hardest thing we have to do. Not to say it's not irritating right now.
Yeah. What is the forecast on the share prices? It's currently only around 22p. What is the analyst's forecast?
You'll need to read the analyst's research note for their target price, but to save people reading it, I can tell you that Progressive is saying our revenue for this year is forecast at 12.6 million EBITDA break even. So
yeah,
given the Chancellor's budgets tomorrow and we're living into the slightly unusual times, who knows what the share price is going to do. But anyway, I can concentrate on running the company, which is what I do.
Exactly right. Yeah, hopefully the person who asked that question will be taken out on board. I think I've got one more.
Sure.
You're obviously up against strong competition in this sector because, you know, every day you see the news and read the newspaper, security is such a big problem. Are there big companies like yourself in this marketplace?
No, that's the curious thing. So we have such an esoteric type of technology. There is very little direct competition for what we do. So yeah, we compete with security guards with metal detector ones, and we compete with metal detectors. So we compete for the same investment pounds out of the business's budget, but we don't have any direct competitors doing what we do, which is why, much to our pleasant surprise, we still have the customs agency market and the profit protection market to ourselves for the time being. And without wishing to sound complacent, we don't see any immediate competitor threat in those two segments. Aviation's quite different. We're the challenger brand to the established airport body scanners. So that's competitive landscape there is obviously different. But in our two go-to green markets, we are, you know, enjoying good market positioning right now. Okay,
I've got time for one quick one, last one. Can the absolute skin temperature be used to detect a virus or viruses?
No, that's a good question. We are the honest answer is not well enough to make it economically viable. We can do, but there are better technologies on the market which are much cheaper than ours to do that better than we can do it. So at the technical level, we run relatively low resolution for privacy reasons, which means our temperature discrimination is compromised. You would for that kind of fever detection, you would use a more traditional long wave infrared camera that will perform that function better than we can perform it.
Okay, right. Well, I think we're just about on time there, Colin. I appreciate your presentation this evening.